Hi, everyone. Thanks for stopping by the Time We Discuss studio. Today I'm speaking with George Siegel, and it's time to discuss what it's like to be a film director and producer. George, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, George, you're a film director and producer of Move the World Films. Now, first, I love the Archimedes quote and how you've adapted that to your logo. I think that was really, really smart and awesome. Move the World Films creates documentaries that address important issues in our lives, such as the importance of having, well-constructed homes or being a good parent. Now, typically, I like to start by asking what a typical day is like for my guests in their profession. But before we dive into that, I want to ask, what prompted you to create these films?
I've watched a lot of documentaries over the years, and what I like artsy films, but I like films that have a call to action or something you can actually do about what they're talking about. So I choose subjects that are close to my heart. I'm a parent, so that's why my first film, License to Parent, it's about parenting. It's a thankless job, and I wanted to talk about it. And then my last two films are about the problems we face as homeowners in construction. And as somebody who's lived all over the country, I've bought a lot of houses. I've dealt with a lot of crappy construction. As a news reporter and weatherman, I covered stories where people were wiped out by disasters. And it's the same story over and over again. And I wanted to go, how do we stop this? How do we wake people up so they quit making the same mistakes? Or how can we learn from other people's mistakes? I have a podcast called Homeowners Be Aware, and that's teaching people everything they need to know about being a homeowner. Because most of us buy a house and we go, it's great, everything's going to be fine, and usually it's not. And so I'm just, you want to make a difference at some point in your life, and that's the way I feel right now. It's like I want to do something that helps people. You have to look at a house as a regular maintenance item, and what can I do to avoid problems? And it's like fixing a problem before it happens is way less expensive than fixing the damage afterwards.
Which ironically is a lot like film production. If you have that triangle and you want to fix things, what was I guess at the base is less expensive, and the further up the triangle you go, it becomes more expensive to correct things as you get further into production.
Yeah, anybody that's ever done video production knows, if you have small clients and they're having you do a video, if they come to you with one they already have and they ask you to fix it, inevitably that's a lot more work than starting over and doing it right the first time, because you're working backwards. You're trying to fix problems which create other problems. And it's easier if you have a clear vision and go forward than if you're trying to fix somebody else's mess.
So I have to ask you, as a film producer and director, what's the typical day like for you when you are on a particular project?
Well, when you're a small crew and you're the producer and the director, you kind of have to be involved in everything. It's not, and I don't know what the other side of that equation is like, because I've never had a Hollywood production budget or a Hollywood crew. So I don't know what a famous director or producer does all day. I only know that when you're at lower down on the chain, you have to do everything. So you have to make sure that your interviews are lined up. You have to make sure that you have the right crew people in all parts. You're doing a film, you got to have a great team to shoot it and get great sound, and then you have to have an excellent editor, then you have to put music in that works, then you have to have graphics and any special effects or things. So you have to oversee all of that. So it's an endless battle of trying to stay on top of everything, but it's fun at the same time. I would say the only part of production that I don't like about making movies is raising the money to make the movies.
Let's talk about that part of it, because I think that's a part, especially in the world of documentaries, if people might not think about that. What's the act of raising money? What is that like?
Well, there's two paths you can go. One, you can put a business plan together and show people how they can make money by investing money in your film. Now, anybody that's ever invested in a film or been involved with this knows there's a disclaimer that you have to show everybody that's investing that says you're probably going to lose your money and you're not going to make anything. So that's not a real exciting investment for people. Then there's crowdfunding. Now, crowdfunding is a whole different animal. That's a job in itself. You're going after people, asking them for $5, $10. You're going back to people that maybe you haven't talked to for 20 or 30 years, and you feel like a sleazy guy that they're going, ooh, what's he coming to me for now? He hasn't called me to say hi for 20 years, and now he wants $10 or a cup of coffee. I mean, I'm not good at asking people for money because I don't like salesmen that are aggressive. So if I say, hey, Dan, are you interested in this? And you say no, I respect that. Dan said no. A good salesman is going to go, he just doesn't know that he wants it yet, and I'm going to keep working him. That's tough to do. And so I think it helps if you're younger, it's easier to do. I think because people want to bet on your enthusiasm and your creative ideas. when you're older, there's so much baggage that you really need to have people that believe in your cause. And that's how we funded our last film, is the people that funded the film either liked me personally, it was probably a smaller group than the amount of people that cared about the cause, and that helped get it done. But it's very difficult to crowdfund.
If someone is creating a documentary and they want to try to locate organizations that believe in a particular cause, is there an easy, I'm going to say directory for lack of better words, that people can easily find these organizations, or is that hard in and of itself?
That's work. It's hard to do, but you have to go, sit down with your team of people. And here's another tip. When you're putting together your team, don't put two or three of you. Try to find people that are different. If you're the creative guy, get a technical guy or gal, get a fundraising guy or gal. Have the people. My problem in past endeavors, I've always picked people that are similar to me, and that's not good for raising money. But when you want to look at what the core of what your film is about, who does it speak to, and then try to find groups that might benefit or be interested in expressing that message. And that's still a time consuming thing, because I've gone to the most obvious people. I'm making films about safe houses and building houses that last. The ultimate answer in my last two films has been have a concrete house. I've never got a nickel out of the concrete industry, and they have millions and millions of dollars, but they don't want to spend it with me. So they're the natural. If they spent a little money with me, we could blast the message out and maybe everybody would want a concrete house. But it's difficult. Insurance companies should love my film, because if people have a safe house, they're not claiming damage on their insurance. I've never got a nickel out of the insurance industry, nothing. So that's the frustration you have to deal with. It's like the most obvious people you think may support your cause may not care about it at all. So you have to have a thick skin, but you also have to put your head down and believe in what you're doing, and find people that believe in it as well.
So I have to ask, talking about the houses, I know that I've seen several headlines over the past year talking about the additive manufacturing of houses. And that might be like maybe they use concrete to do it, like the 3D printing of houses. I'm curious, did you talk about that aspect of it all in that particular film or no?
We did not, and I honestly do not know a lot about that technology. That seems like newer school stuff, where us older guys maybe don't completely even understand how that works. I mean, I was, years ago they were talking about 3D weapons and all these things. And when I think of printing something, I think of printing a flat piece of paper on my computer. My brain doesn't compute creating a gun, creating a house. And it's great if that stuff really works. To me, to have a safe house, it has to be done on the job site, obviously. But if you can bring out the pieces that have been generated somewhere else and make that happen, I think that's great. I'm all for anything that's safe. The problem is most people don't want to spend the money on that. I live in Florida, and you would be shocked at the amount of wood apartment buildings they're building throughout the entire state of Florida. And it's like, okay, that's insane. Why are you doing that? Sure, that could survive a category 2, maybe a category 3 hurricane. Well, what are the major disasters we've seen in the last few years? Are 4s and 5s. It's not going to survive that. There's no disclaimer on the side of the building. If you move in here, you could go airborne. So, to me, it's crazy. It's the mentality of why we do this. And most people don't worry about it or think about it because we think it's not going to happen to us.
When it comes to any particular project you're working on, do they all follow the same general timeline? And what does that timeline look like? Is it like an 18-month, a 3-year? What's that like?
A lot of it depends on who you're trying to get in the film. In my last film, The Last House Standing, it took me a year and a half to get Hank Ovink, one of the people in there. It took me over a year to get in to see FEMA. A lot of it is dependent. If you're trying to get a heavyweight or somebody that's difficult, you're at their mercy. You can't just call them up. If you're going to do man on the street stuff, or you want to go find a family down the street and that's going to be your story, you have access to them. Bigger, busy people you can't get to. And so that can take a lot of time. Then you have to have the time to get all the other pieces done. So it can take, could you do a film in 6 months? Yeah, if your story is right there, you could. But inevitably, I think it takes a year to 2 years at least to do it. And then when you're done, you look back and you go, wow, that's a lot of work to get that done. But this is really cool.
If someone is just starting out and they want to get into film production, is a 4-year degree a good opportunity? Is like a LinkedIn Learning? Can they get as much information through using online videos, tutorials, that sort of thing? What's your experience like with that? What's your opinion of that?
Well, to me, there's no better experience than actually doing it, than actually trying to do it. And if you're just playing around with it, then you're not wasting anybody's money. You're just investing your time. There's a lot of schools that have great film schools. You know, my son recently graduated from USC. I went to UCLA, so I don't like USC very much, but it's the connections you make in college, and he took classes that I didn't take because I was not in that major at UCLA. So it really depends on the classes you take, and to me, it's a great time to network too, because you're with people that have similar interests. So if you're in film classes at school, maybe you'll meet that editor. Maybe you'll meet the guy that wants to be a producer, wants to be a manager, wants to do all these different things, and find a nucleus of people that you're all kind of coming from the same place. And that can be a great thing too. So any experience, whether if you're doing it online, you can learn a lot. There's so many resources that you can pretty much, I hate to plug Google, but you can Google anything and get a way to do it. So to say, I don't know how, or I can't do this, man, there's so many resources out there that there's no excuse not to just try doing something.
That is so true. And anyone that has tried to do any kind of handiwork around the house where they have no knowledge, like myself, YouTube is a great how-to because people can show you exactly what they're working on. They get the phone right up and close and you can see whatever it is. So many opportunities. And that's a good point you raised about colleges, the networking component. The ability to meet those people that you might be able to work with later in life and maybe able to really help you out.
Anywhere you can pick up that knowledge is a good thing. And it's like if you order something online and you get the directions now, they don't even have words on there. They just have pictures, and you're looking at that, and it's 20 pages of pictures. So you have to see somebody else doing it. So you look for a video where somebody talks you through it. So video is invaluable, and it's a great way to learn.
My one son just recently got a wireless game controller for the gaming system that he has, and it didn't even have a QR code or anything. It just said like visit our website. It did not give the URL, so you have to like I guess search for the company name or whatever. But there was no QR code, nothing in the box. And he said this to him. I'm like, did you try? He's like, that is not there. I'm like, it has to be there. But sure enough, it was not.
Yeah, I should just say good luck, you're on your own. We're selling this to you, but we don't really care how you figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Next step will be if you want to view the documentation, it'll cost you extra. That'll be the next step.
That wouldn't surprise me. Or they'll tell you the line that I hate hearing from any company when they think you're wrong and they're right. They'll say, as a one-time courtesy, we'll share this with you.
So going back, you were talking about sometimes it might take some time to line up certain people if you want them to appear in your video. Because of that, do you typically have multiple projects in different stages, or once you know that this person, you got to wait on them and you just got to work on other parts of that same project? What is that typically like?
Well, you have to have a way to have some kind of money around, because if you're doing multiple projects, that means you have to have raised money for multiple projects, or you're just speculating and doing them. But it is time consuming. And I'll give you a great example. We wanted to get a celebrity voiceover person for my current film, Built to Last, Buyer Beware. And I was writing some pretty heavyweight people. And, then you have to wait for their manager or their agent to look at it. Then they present it to the talent. Then they come back. And you just get blown off after person after person after person. And finally, I went to somebody who knew somebody directly, and we got a superstar voiceover guy. The guy's name is Dylan Baker. And a lot of people might not know the name, but if you Google him, this guy's been in a lot of stuff. And I would say maybe the highlight of my career as a director was working with him doing the voiceover of this film, because he was so incredibly good. You could see that this guy is just a pro. And what that's going to add to our film to have that could be huge for us. First, because he's got a great voice, but secondly, because he brings it to life. And that it's hard to get that. Now, a young person going after a celebrity may have a better chance, because The Rock may look at you and go, oh, I like this kid. I think he's got a good idea. For me, they're not going to do it. So there's a lot of challenges in every piece. Those interviews, a lot of those people don't want to do it because they don't know who you are. They don't know how you're going to represent them in a film. You look at people, famous people like Katie Couric and other producers that distort what people have said in films. There's a certain risk factor. When I got to the FEMA director's office, we were sitting there waiting for him to come in, and the PR person looked at me and said, how the hell did you get in here? We do not let filmmakers come talk to the FEMA director because you could twist their message completely. And how did we get in there? They knew what our message was, and they not that you pre-do a message, but the theme of ours was prevention, was warning people to be proactive. You never, as a producer, want to give away the control of your message and say, well, this is what we're going to do, so will you do it? But they knew what we were going for in terms of trying to help people.
Do you envision kind of like continue to build yourself up, or are you happy and content doing the type of film you're doing? What does that look like for you, more of a longer term, I guess?
It's just opportunity. I'm not going to be in a position to retire till after I'm dead. So I need to keep working and I enjoy working. So it's just finding the right projects, finding people that want to get behind the project and help support it. And that's the downside of being a filmmaker. If you're not on the payroll of a studio, if you're not like the Netflix director, you've got to hustle. But I've done that for most of my career, so it's something that I'm used to doing, and I intend to keep doing it.
That's really interesting that you just mentioned Netflix. So when it comes to the digital economy, what's it like for you getting your film on different platforms? Is that a huge headache? Is that easy? What's that like?
No, that's not easy at all. And the big one that you can put it on YouTube, if you put your film on there for free, and a lot of people I've worked with on past projects, so let's put it up on YouTube. You have to run your film and have so many hours to make nickels. So who's making money there? The big YouTube contributors, the big ones, and YouTube. So as a filmmaker, it's an insult to me to put my film on YouTube because I'm going to make nothing. Now I have a movie on Tubi right now, Tubi TV, and they run ads in your film, but I get nickels for that. It just comes dribbling in. So to get on Netflix or Amazon Prime, unless your last name is Obama or Prince Harry and Meghan, it's hard to crack that code. I'm hoping with this current film I will because it's a really good film, but there's no guarantee you're going to be able to do that. So you have to keep looking. There's Hulu, there's Amazon Prime is interesting, but the regular Amazon is a lot like YouTube. Anybody can say, yeah, my film's on Amazon, so they'll send you a nickel every 6 months. It's not a formula for making money. You're not going to make your money back doing that. There's a lot of people that are doing this, and I think that's great because there's so many stories to tell. So how do you separate yourself from the pack? You have to have a great story. It has to be well done, and you have to market it right to have them interested in it. And if you do, hopefully a lot of people see your project, and then that leads to other things. But there's no guarantees at all.
Now, talking about more people doing documentaries, do you ever find that you are creating a documentary or you have an idea for a documentary that someone else is currently working on? They just kind of stumble across or whatever. And if that happens, do you ever find yourself like partnering with people or anything like that, or not so much?
Well, on the film I'm doing right now, I partnered with a guy who made a similar film, and we've known each other over the years. And he said, "Hey, we said let's team up and do a film together." So yeah, that can happen. But I don't think competition is a bad thing. There's so many venues out there, and there's so many people that if you and I are doing the exact same subject, we'll tell it differently. We'll have a different spin on it and come from it from a different place, and then people can choose or maybe watch both. I don't try to think of other people as competition. One of the best things I've done is I was in this documentary film group with 8 or 9 other filmmakers. And each one of these people was incredibly talented and they all made really good films. But we all shared ideas and brainstormed and gave each other feedback. And that's a community that can really help lift everybody up because, a great example was my film was too long for public television. And I needed to cut about 18 minutes out. And I was just kind of whining about, I can't cut 18 minutes out. So these guys all said, men and women said, well, give it to us. We'll do it. And it kind of ruffled my pride. It's like, no, I'm not giving you my film. So I went back and did it. And I cut the 18 minutes out and got it on PBS. But it's that kind of motivation from people that are in a similar industry as you that can be very valuable to be part of a group where you help each other. And it was very helpful for me.
So let's talk about that more. What other resources are out there for people that are aspiring filmmakers that they can take advantage of, like different user groups or meetups or anything like that? What types of resources like that exist?
Well, there's usually a film commission or a film group in a lot of cities. I know Tampa has one, St. Petersburg has one, San Antonio, Texas, where I lived before here has one. So see if there's a local film organization you can get involved with and become a member, maybe go to their screenings, meet and talk to other people and express an interest. If you're really young, try to get on a crew and don't think they're going to let you on as the director. You're going to be a PA, you're going to be a runner. Maybe your job is getting lunch and helping set up lights. But if you're there and want to learn, there's people that will help you learn. They don't want your opinion. They don't need you out there telling them, well, if you did a shot this way. And it's like, no, just show up and be eager to learn and work hard. And that's a great way to cut your chops and move up. Also on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, there's all kinds of different groups you can search for and meet other filmmakers. You know, a lot of people are going, I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk to people like those are the best people to talk to because they have the same passion that you do.
Going back to how you got started doing this seems like it was like a second career. You said that you did, you're a weather person, involved with the news. What was that transition like going from that to being a filmmaker? How did that unfold?
Well, it was a slow transition. When I got out of the news business, I started a video production company. So I was able to get clients to make marketing videos, sales videos. Then I created my own travel show. You know, I started evolving into more ideas. And then I said, well, I want a longer form way to tell stories. Documentaries seem like a good way to do that. But what you have to understand when you're choosing that path, that is not a path to wealth and fame in most cases. That's a path to passion and hopefully making a difference because most filmmakers do not get rich. You know, you could hit lightning in a bottle and all of a sudden you're the next big thing. At my age, that's probably not going to happen. But for young people, you know, to say you're going to be the top in a profession in anything is a crapshoot. You know, I made it to some pretty good TV markets and had some really good jobs. But, you know, do you have a job that sustains you for 30, 40 years where you make millions of dollars? You know, you have to pick your lane.
So, George, this is the part of the show where I like to ask a surprise question to the person I'm speaking with. Has absolutely nothing to do with what you do for a living. So the question I have for you today, and I think you'll have a variety of things to pull from for this question. Over the course of our lives, we have opportunities. It could be an opportunity to accept a scholarship or play a specific sport or study abroad or accept a promotion. I want you to think about an amazing opportunity that you had, and while it was rewarding, was incredibly challenging.
Well, you want to talk about ones that worked or ones that I had but I missed?
I think both would be fantastic.
You know, when I was working in Bakersfield, California, there was a news director in, I think it was Wichita Falls, it was either Kansas or Texas. And he said, I want to make you my main weather guy, and I'll also send you to school to become a meteorologist. And at the time, I wasn't really interested in doing that. If I had done that, my career trajectory could have been huge because that's what held me back was not being a meteorologist. You know, people only want the jokester so much. Eventually, the right markets in certain places want a meteorologist. And I could have had that for free, and it could have bolstered my career. The other time I had an audition to be the weekend host of Entertainment Tonight, and I didn't get it. That could have been huge. That would have been a turning point in my career. Another time I made a game show for Nickelodeon, but they didn't pick it up. We just made a pilot. So you have these moments where you think it's a tipping point where this is going to be my launching pad to success, but for whatever reason, it's beyond your control. A focus group looks at it and goes, nah, I don't like the game show. Maybe I didn't like the host. Maybe I didn't like this. You don't know. They don't tell you that. You know, with Entertainment Tonight, what was really funny, Rob Weller was the host on the weekends at that time, and I was auditioning with Lisa Gibbons, who was the weekend star at the time as well. And she says out loud to the crew, you know who you remind me of? You remind me of Rob, the guy they were firing. I could feel the air go out of the room like a balloon had just been ruptured. And I knew there was no chance I was getting that job. And, you know, any actor or person that auditions for something will tell you, you know, when you did well and you know when you're going home. And so those are examples of where could have gone one way, but it didn't.
Those are good stories. George, before I cut you loose, one thing I like to do is when I'm speaking with a person, I like to give them the opportunity to talk about a project they're working on, a cause they believe in, something like that. We obviously talked about some of your films, you know, at the surface. But if there's something you'd like to talk about, you know, the floor is yours.
Well, I have a movie that's hopefully coming out this summer, and it's going to depend on where we can get it on and broadcast. We want to enter it in some festivals. It's called Built to Last, Buyer Beware. And we have a website, Built to Last Movie, and it's not the number two, it's built lastmovie.com. And people can go on there and see the trailer, see what we're doing, see the crew that put it together. And we're working on trying to secure a good distribution for the film, and it's being edited right now. I also have a podcast called Homeowners Be Aware, and it's homeownersbeaware.com is that website. And every week I have a guest on that talks about either a problem they've had with their home and how they handled it, or we talk to an expert about how you improve the air quality in your house, how you make sure your house is safe. You know, I had a guest on that the podcast hasn't aired yet, but most people don't think about this. Who are your neighbors? It can be really horrible where people live. Did you think about that before you moved in? I mean, there's so many topics for this podcast, and it keeps me interviewing people, and hopefully keeps some brain cells stimulated, where it's a fun thing to do. So those are two things that I like people to check out, and you can follow me on social media through those two places. There's links to different ways to stay in touch. If you're a homeowner that has a story, I would love for you to reach out to me. I have a guy coming on next week who had every problem you could have as a homeowner, your biggest nightmare. He didn't have an inspection. He had crummy neighbors. He went through a divorce. I mean, you name it. But it's fascinating to hear that from somebody because it gives you things to think about. And we all need to be thinking about things that we know. It's kind of negative to think of what could go wrong. But, if you had to pick the three little pigs, which pig would you want to be? Everybody wants to be the guy in the brick house, but most people are not. You're in the straw house.
George, I'll make sure I get all those links from you. I'll put them in the description of the show. They'll be in the show notes for everyone so they can easily find your video, your podcast, the links to the website, your social media stuff, all that stuff. Whatever you send me, I'll put in for everyone to look at.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. And I'd love for people to look at the trailer, tell me what you think, to see if it gets you excited. I don't really get excited about a lot of things. I'm kind of even keeled because when you get too excited, you get disappointed. If you're too down, no one wants to be around you. I look at my trailer for this film and I go, wow, I had a great crew working with me. This is really good. That's the cool thing when you're a director. If you have a good idea and you give it to an editor and he makes it better, you're working in a good environment where this is going to be a really good project. And that's fun.
That's awesome. So everyone check that out. I'll make sure to check it out as well. I'll give you some feedback.
I would love that. Thank you, Dan. I would really appreciate it. And thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, George. So glad you joined us today on Time We Discuss. Thanks for popping in the studio. My name is Dan, and this is Time We Discuss. I really enjoyed speaking with George today. Be sure to check the links in the description to learn more. If there's a profession they want me to cover, add a comment, and I'll find that person for you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. That'll do it. See you next time on Time We Discuss.